Again, leave it to the Marines. Trotting out, Chris Burnett is with us here. Good morning, Chris. How are you doing?
Good morning. How are you today?
We're doing fine. So you've decided you're running against incumbent Congresswoman April McClain Delaney. You are a retired Marine Corps attorney, 22 years of service, specializing in operational international law. You did 5 tours deployed 5 times in Iraq. And so I want to thank you for your service to the country. And so why have you decided to jump into this race?
You know, that is a good question, and my wife asks me that every single day. But whenever I was getting out, it was clear that we wanted to stay in Maryland and make this our home. I wanted to be involved in this fight. When I saw that what was happening and the direction we're going in, I felt compelled to try to get into this argument and try to solve some of the problems that seem to be lingering. So I see this as an extension of serving in the Marine Corps, continuing to serve in any way I can to help set the conditions for other people to succeed.
Yeah, first, let's start with, a law enforcement issue, and that is the president, and obviously is out there with ICE, and they're trying to make sure that the criminal illegal aliens first, and then other illegal aliens who have broken the laws of our country are especially the criminal ones, are arrested and deported. And that has caused quite a bit of stir here in Maryland, where you've had other members of our delegation, Senator Van Hollen, Senator Alsobrooks, and most of the Democrats opposed to that and actually advocating interfering with ICE. What are your thoughts on that?
But to me, this is it's almost silly, the position the Democrats have taken. We're a nation of laws, and the rule of law is what binds us. To me, any interference with the enforcement of existing laws is simply unacceptable. And the Democrats have taken a position in favor of, I guess I should say, in opposition to law-abiding U.S. citizens. And so when you take a position that favors illegal immigrants over U.S. citizens, you're taking a position contrary to our own interests.
Speaking of the rule of law, there's a lot of controversy over the president and the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, authorizing these drug cartel boat strikes at sea. Again, the full video has not been released, but there are members of Congress, including former Army Ranger Tom Cotton, who said they've seen it. It complies with the Uniform Code of Military Justice and all laws that have been vetted at every level by JAG officers. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I do. I was at U.S. Southern Command in 2018 and 2019, and we knew this was a major problem. At the time, we had looked at labeling fentanyl and carfentanil as a weapon of mass destruction so that we could have the full use of the military to respond. What has emerged over the last several years is that we have narco-terrorists that have been designated as foreign terrorist organizations. And once you do that, now anybody affiliated with that foreign terrorist organization is a legitimate military target. So in this instance, we were targeting a military vessel, in this case a boat that was carrying drugs, and everybody on board were all legitimate military targets. So whenever you engage that target and destroy the target, in this case the boat, you can also then continue to engage any individual that's affiliated with that in what's called status-based targeting. And the argument that this was somehow a shipwreck or that these folks were out of the fight is not an accurate interpretation of international law. So I have no problem whatsoever with this, and I hope we continue to protect our shores from drug runners bringing in illicit drugs that have been killing millions of Americans for years. So I have no problem with it, and I support going further and continuing to do this.
All right, we're talking with our Newsmaker Hotline here is Chris Burnett, a retired U.S. Marine Corps attorney. He's running in CD6 against April McClain Delaney. More on that coming up in just a second. It's 8:13. Traffic and weather on the threes. With the update now, here's Chuck Whitaker.
Morning backup in Annapolis, of course, is still there going towards Annapolis. Southbound I-97 at Route 32. Not quite back to Benfield, but it's slow through there. And then once you clear that split at Route 32, it starts to get there as you're moving down eventually to the ramp and the overpass there at 178. The interchange at 50 at I-97. The lanes are open. That ramp is always busy, leaving Parole and then heading north onto I-97. Might still be a little bit slow yet near Maple Lawn on 29 southbound. The wreck was after 216, was off to the shoulder area, but traffic was still a bit slow there. All the normal stuff on the Beltway is still there. JFX has been heavy south of Ruxton Road and down through the city-county line. I'm Chuck Whitaker with traffic and weather on the 3s on Talk Radio 680 WCBM.
Fox 25 Weather Authority forecast mostly cloudy, breezy today, scattered showers, mid-40s right now, cloudy 34 in the Columbia. It's 36 under cloudy skies in Annapolis. On our newsmaker hotline, Chris Burnett, he's running in CD6 against April McLean Delaney. Probably the biggest issue right now, Chris, we saw the president yesterday in Pocono, Pennsylvania on his affordability rally tour. The Democrats have now dubbed this term affordability crisis. We find out that obviously inflation is in check, real wages are growing. There's some prices that are being impacted, but what are your thoughts on the current economy and how do we make it better?
First of all, I think President Trump is actually doing exactly what needs to be done right now as far as resetting global trade, decoupling from some of our vulnerable supply chains, and ensuring that we have a pathway for success going into the AI economy. But I think what the Democrats are hammering is that a lot of Democrat-led cities and Democrat-led states, namely Maryland, are in somewhat of an affordability crisis, and this is a problem of their own making. Their policies and their failure to look ahead and set the conditions for people to succeed has created an affordability crisis. And in Maryland, we absolutely have to address the lack of growth, the lack of opportunity, and really undermining the opportunities for middle-class families to succeed in Maryland.
As an individual who deployed to Iraq 5 times in service to our country, obviously answering the call to the then commanders-in-chief, you obviously are probably more sensitive to war than the rest of us. We're seeing what's happening right now in Ukraine and Russia. President Trump has given Zelensky until Christmas to accept a peace deal, and then after that, we may or may not walk away. Again, what are your thoughts on getting involved in these kinds of wars, especially in the bloodlands of Ukraine and Russia?
Well, first, I should be corrected. 4 times on the ground in Iraq, and then there was one last time where I was on what's called a Marine Expeditionary Unit, and we were supporting I was on the USS Boxer. So it was 5 times in the Middle East, 4 times on the ground in Iraq. But I couldn't agree more. When you go and deploy, you understand just how terrible that environment is. And I feel for the Ukrainian people, and I feel for the folks that are suffering under this prolonged and protracted war. We need to end this immediately. And Zelensky has to realize that the best thing that he can do for his country is to ensure that there's some kind of lasting peace, because this is not something that can continue. It's not something that we should continue to support. I think we've done a very good job of assisting them with the things that they've needed to sustain this fight. I think we provided them with intelligence and an expertise that has been beneficial. But this war needs to end, and I would encourage Zelensky and his team to look hard at an opportunity to off-ramp and find some kind of lasting peace with security agreements.
Chris, Secretary of Transportation Sean Duffy is going to meet with Governor Moore shortly to discuss the skyrocketing costs of the Key Bridge, which, as you know, collapsed here in the Baltimore area. Should taxpayers be on the hook to pay for the Key Bridge rebuild?
Well, first of all, one of the cornerstones of my campaign is simply accountability. There's a complete lack of accountability in Maryland. We've had a tax and spend approach to just about everything under the sun for as long as anyone can remember. I would want a full review of why the costs are skyrocketing. Were these not foreseen? Has this been mismanagement? Was there oversight? And if that's the case, then somebody should be fired or resign. But no, I do not think taxpayers should pay for the incompetence of bureaucrats.
And finally, we know that CD6 has been gerrymandered rather significantly. We understand that Governor Moore has called for a special session, ostensibly to elect a new speaker, but we all know that redistricting is on the front burner. What are your thoughts on getting Maryland back to fair and equitable districts and that folks can count on representation in Congress?
I mean, that's the foundation of this country, that every voice and every vote matters. The fact that we're even having this discussion is absurd. The fact that Wes Moore comes out and says that he wants to look at a fair redistricting when we're already 7-1 and underrepresented in Congress is shocking to me. The fact that he could look into a camera and tell everybody that we're doing this out of fairness is absurd. I think what we need to do is look at a single approach to how we determine what congressional districts look like across the country. Because what we're starting to find is that it really is getting to the point where folks are so disenfranchised and disengaged that they've given up. They expected to be lied to. They expect to not have their voice count. So in this case, I hope that Maryland does the right thing and puts an end to this nonsense, and that we look forward to having a single standard across all 50 states that would define how congressional districts are written, when they're done, and have some level of stability and consistency so that every vote is counted.
All right, so how do our listeners get more information about your campaign or volunteer, donate, et cetera? What's your website and your socials?
It's burnettforcongress.com, and you'll be able to find us on X, on Instagram and Facebook, and then visit the website, burnettforcongress.com. You can sign up for our newsletter, you can sign up to volunteer, and you can sign up to donate. This is going to be an uphill battle. Whether it's Trone or Delaney, we're going to have to put in the work to try to flip CD6 and finally make it red again.
Sounds good. Chris, thanks so much for joining us. I'm sure we'll be talking in the future again.
Have a good day. Thanks.
All right, that's Chris Burnett, running for Congress in the 6th Congressional District. He's a retired Marine attorney and sounds pretty sharp to me. And it sounds like he's certainly ready for the fight, ready for the battle. It's 8:20, 20 minutes after the hour. You're listening to Casey and Company on Talk Radio 680, WCBM, 99.9 FM in Harford County.